And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another fantastic installment from very high above all the puerile and moronic forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday. Thank God we don't pass laws preventing stupid people from being stupid. It would result in a dramatic decrease in my entertainment. Now, case in point, Elisa Campbell. Oh, I haven't talked about her in long enough. I mean, on the House floor. Well, and I'm probably not only on the House floor, but from the gallery, she was a constant source of entertainment. Let me just read you one of her most recent missives, and it's about House Bill 32, which is the What is a Woman Act. And before you ask, Agent 29, a woman is a female of the species Homo sapien with XX chromosomes. Period.
According to Kipling, she's more deadly than the male as well.
Yes, indeed. So here's what our pal Elisa Campbell has to say. Quote, I truly believe that the more educated we are, the more informed and the better our decisions will be. I completely agree. I don't like morons passing bills that I have to follow. In fact, I think that, you should continually educate yourself. The problem is that Elisa Campbell doesn't follow her own advice. And I continue. This past legislative session, I attempted to articulate what I have learned through research and as the basis of my opposition to several bills. Keep in mind, Elisa Campbell is doing a ton of research, so this next part ought to be a revelatory bombshell. Here we go. HB 32, the What is a Woman Act in particular, my rationale. Establishing binary-based policy not only grossly oversimplifies the beautiful complexity that is humans, it is scientifically false. What, may I ask, is scientifically false about the reality that there are only two genders, that there are only two sexes, there's male and female, and that's it? The rest of what she has to say is on the floor. I argued that such black and white cataloging makes for bad policy, does harm, and creates negative optics for our state. My critics contend that I don't know what a woman is. It's not just your critics, Elisa. It's everybody other than you and Julie Jarvis. I contend it's not that simple. While defining and legislating biological sex might make life easier and feel safer for some, it makes life far more challenging and unsafe for others. Unsafe for those who have a mental condition. If you believe that it is possible for a man to become a woman or a woman to become a giraffe, then you are suffering from a mental disease, a mental affliction, some sort of psychosis, because you're denying reality, which, of course, is the definition of stupidity. And it's also the definition of insanity, that you're presented with the facts and that you deny objective facts. You can go pull any biology textbook off the shelf in any high school in America, and it will say that there are two sexes and that there are two genders, male and female, and that's it. Now, you can claim to be a trout or an elk or a mountain lion, but just saying so doesn't make it true. I would say, Ms. Elisa Campbell, that legislating based on insanity or on a mental condition is in itself unsafe and unwise. It's unwise for you to even be on the floor if you're going to advocate this. And I can tell you for a fact that anytime this subject came up, whether it was the What is a Woman Act, or it was saying that, no, if you're a man, you can't use the women's restroom. If it was any one of those bills, Elisa Campbell stood on the floor and argued the ridiculousness of her position. The truth is, my friends, is that we are inundated with that sort of stupidity. And now that begs a question. Now, if Elisa Campbell got elected, and she clearly did, is it Elisa Campbell that's stupid, or is it her constituents? Now it would be easy to slip in there and say, but well, she got elected, so obviously her voters are stupid. It is not that complicated, and you are grossly minimizing the effect of redcoats. See, redcoats, by their very nature, are master manipulators and liars. If it were not so, they would not be able to get elected. So, watching the campaign videos of Elisa Campbell, now, if you were attuned to the language of redcoats and what I might term
Horse crap.
then you would know that obviously she's lying. Now, I remember a couple of videos of a politics in the park type event where Elisa Campbell, on the one hand, said that she's absolutely a conservative and that she believes in her
keep
guns.
using the word.
Ah.
I don't think it means what you think it means.
Indeed. Elisa Campbell used that word a lot on the campaign trail, which is why people voted for her. And here's how it works out. These politicians show up on our doorstep and they say things like, I think that taxes are too high. We spend too much. I love my guns and I'm a conservative and you should vote for me. And because people in Wyoming are kind of a trusting sort, we do. And then we realize that when these folks go to Cheyenne, they're doing exactly the opposite. Another perfect example of this is Julie Jarvis down in, what is that, House District 10? I think it's House District 10 down in Casper. It was Chuck Gray's old district. Now, Julie Jarvis went on the campaign trail and tried to explain to everybody how she's a good old small town Wyoming conservative gal. Now, I will admit, when I went to high school with her, perhaps she did have some conservative tendencies, but those got lost somewhere between Buffalo, Wyoming, and Connecticut. That's where she went to school. When she came home, she was as liberal and as goofy as the day is long. And I mean, all the ratings sites are not done with their analysis of the session. I fully expect that Elisa Campbell and Julie Jarvis will be, they'll definitely be near the bottom of the list. But my guess is they'll show up being less conservative than the Democrats. Because Mike Yin and Carly Provenza, who are two of the only 6 Democrats in the House, they do have some flashes of conservatism. There's a bill or two just about every session that they say, you know what, this is too liberal even for me. However, when you compare them to Julie Jarvis and Elisa Campbell, the stupidity just takes over, and they just can't help vote for ridiculously dumb things.
Those flashes. You call them conservatism. That could be
random flashes of conservatism
of common sense.
Maybe so.
I think it is more appropriate, but I won't take away from your 99.9%.
Well, no. I mean, I think that you're probably correct, and I think that you've just stumbled upon something that we really need to unpack here. Most of conservatism is common sense. It's things that are objectively true that have always worked in our country, and to try to argue against them, frankly, is to argue against common sense, right? That maybe we should prosecute criminals, that we shouldn't just eliminate cash bail and let them wander around the streets. When people enter our country and break our laws and subvert due process, we shouldn't assume that they get due process on the other end and get to stay in this country. It's a classic contradiction. So when we look at the voting records and at the acts of a lot of these politicians, Elisa Campbell, Julie Jarvis, dumb J.D. Williams, or any of them, we can't mistake the absolute ridiculousness of their positions. Eventually, if you pay attention, they'll tell you how liberal and how dumb they really are. Speaking of liberal and dumb things, from the Cowboy, in an article entitled "Fremont County and Casper have the cleanest air in the United States," the Lung Association says. Now, I have no doubt that towns in Wyoming have the cleanest air.
Casper doesn't have its own air. It's constantly changing.
Well, that's true. That's very true. So the question is, does any town in Wyoming have dirty air? Do we have pollution in any Wyoming town? I would say probably in our population centers, Casper, Cheyenne. There's a little bit more smog, but we're not talking smog like compared to Denver or to Los Angeles. It's not a giant cloud that hovers over the city. No. If you go to any town in Wyoming, you're going to find cleaner air than anywhere else. But let's let David Madison of the Cowboy talk about it. And I quote, "The American Lung Association has named Fremont County and Casper as having the cleanest air in the United States. At the same time, some Wyoming cities and counties received failing grades for certain types of air pollution. Air quality monitors in South Pass, Lander, and Riverton recorded the lowest levels in the U.S. for year-round particle pollution, according to the American Lung Association's 2025 State of the Air report. Fremont County, quote, is in fact the cleanest county in the United States when it comes to year-round particles. I beg to differ. Fremont County is home to Lloyd Larsen."
Horse crap.
No, that one's actually true. But it is impossible to have a city with clean air when you have individuals like Lloyd Larsen and Nancy Case running around. And to further complicate the matter, you have some of the redcoats that are in charge of the Fremont County Republican Party. Now, granted, they're not all redcoats. Most of them are conservative, but there's a bunch of them in Fremont County. And I contend, Agent 29, that it is impossible to have clean air where redcoats are concerned.
Sorry, you got me sidetracked when you mentioned Lloyd Larsen running around. I'm trying.
Horse crap.
You mentioned Lloyd Larsen running around. I'm trying to picture that, and I
excuse me,
picture that
waddling around when he isn't stalking his political opponents. He waddles around. But here's the ridiculous part of this piece in the Cowboy, that any town in Wyoming has clean air. It's just by the very nature of where we live. We don't have a high population. We don't really have any, industrial centers. There's no factories bilging out smog. I mean, factories really don't bilge out smog.
There are
anymore,
forests that burn, and I'm sure that's probably where that comes from. But does that article allude to how many smoky days you have to have in order to downgrade? I think that's probably where they're going.
First page or two out of this, and I mean, they do talk about the fires because they gave Teton County a failing grade. Well, when they were doing this study, it was in the middle of fire season, so of course there were some particulates in the air. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is it shows the fallacy of the Environmental Protection Agency and the Clean Air Act. Now, certainly, we all want clean air. We all want clean water. We don't want, we don't want companies to be dumping, whatever they want into the water, which, by the way, that doesn't happen very often. Companies are interested in profit, and it takes far more money to clean up a mess than it does to do it right the first time. But anyway, we want those things, clean air, clean water. And to suggest that there aren't both of those things in Wyoming shows that it's a fallacy from the very beginning.
You shouldn't be worrying too much at all about at least the EPA in this region.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, our buddy Cyrus is going to fix it all.
Yes, Cyrus Western is now in charge of the EPA in this district, and we don't have to worry about any of this crap anymore. Well, coming up after the break, the a judge has finally ruled in the lawsuit of the Willies. Now, the Willies, their daughter was being socially transitioned in the local high school. 2 years ago, I interviewed them, and well, the judges said they didn't bring enough evidence. So after the break, we're going to go ahead and talk about that. It's a fascinating discussion, but it's just another example of a district court judge basically ruling against common sense. When you listen to what the Willies tell you, you'll agree with me. So we'll talk about that in just a second. You are listening to Cowboy State Politics Live. You can listen to the program on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on Rumble, pretty much everywhere. It's almost like I'm omnipresent. If you miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics Live, you can always go to the live replay, which is located at the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, under the live replay button. You can listen to Cowboy State Politics Live every Tuesday through Friday at 8 a.m. You can listen to the Cowboy State Politics podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest place is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. That way, if your name is Joe Biden and you can't remember if you had your pudding today, well, I probably can't help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Rumble. And today, definitely you don't want to miss the Cowboy State Politics podcast. It's the full interview with a candidate for Wyoming State GOP Vice Chairman, Bob Ferguson. It's a great interview, and probably about 10 o'clock, I would say, that thing will go live. So you definitely don't want to miss that. Go to cowboystatepolitics.com or really anywhere that you get your podcasts and just search for Cowboy State Politics and you'll find it. So for over 2 years, a lawsuit has been going on in Rock Springs. Well, I should say the lawsuit originated in Rock Springs, and it was filed by Ashley and Sean Willie, parents of a then high school student, a daughter, who was being secretly transitioned from and again, this is how stupid this is, because it's impossible to transition from a man to a woman. However, the school was attempting to socially transition their child, and it's the Scott Skevdahl, I think that's how you pronounce his name, U.S. District Judge in Wyoming, has ruled that they didn't bring enough evidence. There's not enough evidence for this lawsuit to proceed. It's typical. Pretty much, judges now, they'll toss lawsuits for any reason whatsoever. And usually the one that you hear more often than anything is, well, you don't have any standing. You don't have standing to sue. In many cases, we're all left wondering, well, if I don't have standing, well, who does? Is it possible for anybody to have standing in this? Well, that's how ridiculous our court system has become. Well, truth is, 2 years, almost to the day, I interviewed Ashley and Sean Willie. Let's go ahead and listen to just a little piece of it. Play cut number 1.
Mom, dad, parent to 6 beautiful children, moved to Rock Springs so I could teach. I got a job teaching here in Rock Springs. and everything was going really good. I mean, we all loved it. I loved everything about it. And then 3/4 of the way through last year, I was at a training, district-wide.
Hold on a minute. So remember, this interview was done on, released it on May 15th of 2023. So the year she's talking about is 2022. So just got to keep the timeline straight because this thing's been going on for forever.
Was district-wide, but it was something you could sign up for it. So it was something I specifically chose. And I was sitting at a table talking to a coworker, and there was some other people there, and
Listen
it
to
got brought
this.
up that they work at Black Butte High School in Rock Springs. And I said, "Oh, do you know my daughter Aspen?" And the lady said that she did. She loves Aspen. Aspen's such a sweet girl. And the gentleman sitting next to her, I said, "Do you know Aspen too?" And he said, "I think so," and said Aspen in a different last name. And I said, "No, that's not her." And I had my planner that has pictures of my family all over it, and I pushed it towards him and pointed, and I said, this is Aspen right here." And he looked very confused. And she, sitting 3 feet away from me, if that, covers her face and says, "It goes by Cooper." And
Whoa.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I said, no, she goes by Aspen.
Okay, so that's a school official saying it goes by Cooper. So it doesn't really matter if that school official, and a teacher is a school official, a secretary is a school official. Doesn't matter if you're the principal or, whatever position that you happen to have. If you work for the school, by definition, you're a school official. So this one says it goes by Cooper. Now, according to, and you can go back and listen to the interview, it's very clear that Ashley and Sean Willie had no idea that at school their daughter was referred to as, by a male name. Now, admittedly, they'll also tell you in the interview that they were dealing with some depression type issues, that the girl was in counseling. And so there was a lot of different things that were going on there. But I would encourage you not just to take the word of the cow pie in this piece, but go listen to the interview. Listen to what these parents have to say, and you'll come away with a very different impression than what the cow pie gives you. All that being said, let me just read you a couple paragraphs of this piece in the cow pie. Quote, "A Wyoming federal judge Monday ruled against a Rock Springs couple, Sean and Ashley Willie, who sued the local school district on claims it helped socially gender transition their high school daughter without their knowledge or consent. A Wyoming federal judge Monday ruled that the Rock Springs couple who sued their local school district, Ashley and Sean Willie, aided with the past few months of evidence exchanged with Sweetwater County School District Number 1. The judge said that doesn't carry enough proof that the school district violated their parental or religious rights. U.S. District Judge Scott Skovdahl ruled. He judged the case early in the school district's favor and dismissed it. Quote, this is a statement from Ashley and Sean Willie. "We're disappointed with the court's decision to grant summary judgment and wholeheartedly disagree with the court's analysis of uncontroverted evidence of the defendant's actions as applied to legal precedent," wrote the Willie's attorney, Ernie Tracus, in a statement sent Tuesday to the cow pie. "We believe the court got it wrong, and its decision regrettably ignores acknowledged facts by the defendants." Now, the other part of this, and I don't know if this necessarily impacts the case, but a former teacher was communicating with their daughter, Aspen, and giving her, I guess, hints on how to go to these different LGBTQZXPWDS websites and to keep it from their parents. So there's a lot of different things that are going on in this. If you read the piece in the cow pie, they straight up say that they're going to appeal. But I've got another interesting piece here from Wild Pile. Of course, it's got a very liberal bent to it, but I wanted to just bring up another perspective for you. The article is entitled "Rock Springs School Didn't Violate Parental Rights in Transgender Pronoun Case." All right, first of all, the title is entirely misleading. That's not what the judge said. The judge ruled that there wasn't enough evidence to conclude that. Doesn't mean they didn't do it. It doesn't mean that wasn't the intent of the school. It doesn't mean that they weren't violating the parents' wishes. He only said that there's not enough evidence to proceed. And if you read the whole court filing, it's you can tell it. It's pretty long. It's well over 20 pages. But here's what Wild Pile says. Sweetwater county educators did not keep information from the parents of a Rock Springs High School student who asked to be called by preferred pronoun name. That's not true either. If you read the court court order, it said that if the school had to disclose every piece of information to parents, then it would be a nonstop list of all sorts of things that impact a student's health and well-being. Just because a school didn't volunteer that information doesn't necessarily mean that they withheld it. Okay, so you have to read the court ruling, do your own research, find out for yourself what is true and what is not. Don't just take my word for it. In fact, don't believe anything that I say. Do your own research. This is an opinion and news show. Sometimes, not very often, I get it wrong. But what I want you to do, and this is a perfect case of this, do your own research. Listen to the first interview I did with him. It's from 2 years ago. And I'll, when I post the podcast for this morning, I'll go ahead and put a link up on the website just so you can go back to that episode since it was 2 years ago. That's a lot of stuff to dig through. So I'll make it easier for you. But make sure that you do your own research. Don't take my or anybody else's word for anything. Know what's true for yourself. Thomas Jefferson said that you should question with boldness even the very existence of God. And what he meant by that is you have to find out what is true for yourself. Know why you believe the things that you do. Know that you know. And that way, you don't fall into this trap like Elisa Campbell and say, without a doubt, in your opinion, there's more than two genders. That's just idiotic. And then the funny part about that, I don't mean to keep harping on her, but she says that, I found out facts. Oh, really? I wonder which facts that she's viewing. Let's see here. You know what? We're a little bit early, but let's go ahead and take our second break. But when we come back, we're going to have to talk about this Abrego Garcia guy. Yeah, the media, they just can't help from shooting themselves in the foot. But there again, if you don't know anything about firearms, I suppose that's something you're used to. We'll talk about that in just a second. It's spring-ish in Wyoming. Well, what that means for the uninitiated is that it's going to be 70 degrees one day and then snow 1.5 feet the next. And really, if you don't like those two options, just wait a little bit. The weather will change. I know, it sounds a little stressful, but really you should put your mind at ease and buy a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They'll keep you warm and dry even on the nastiest, coldest spring-ish day, and they'll keep you cool and dry even when it's 75 and sunny. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election. Siberia,
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
Straight to hell.
Iceland, France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the past 5 weeks just been more than you could bear? If that's the case, you have come to the right place. All you need to do is call my friend Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I'll never felt the freedom like I do. I'll be stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy state politics is only going to get stronger. This program is only going to continue to expand. From every corner of this state to eventually every state in this country, it's Cowboy state politics, and I'm your host, David Iverson, documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. I really need to go back and run the numbers on that again. I'm sure we're close to like 99.5. 99.8. We got to be up there.
You just said run back and run the numbers yourself. You didn't say yourself, but again. So do you suppose that helps you get to 99? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no. I mean, it is a tried and true formula that has been passed down from the beginning of broadcasting. How you figure out how right you are. And if you think I'm wrong, I really don't give a crap because it's my program. So the Democrats are refusing to realize that they've been backed into a corner. That somehow, through some weird, strange coincidence, perhaps they've stepped into the twilight zone, but they've been cornered into defending an illegal alien gangbanger. Now, just think about that for just a second. That it is the Democrats that are saying, "Oh no, this guy, he's a Maryland man. He is so nice." Agent 29, did you know how nice this Maryland man is? He is just a pillar of his community.
I saw pictures of him sitting and having a drink with the good senator from his state, and he looks like you and I would.
Well, yeah, except of course that he has some interesting tattoos all over the place. I mean, if you throw this up on the screen, yes, here we go. This is the Maryland man's fist, and of course you see the marijuana leaf. Every Maryland man has a tattoo of a marijuana leaf on their hand, and the smiley with the little X's. Usually that means you've done somebody in. I'm sure that has nothing to do with the motto of MS-13, which is rape, torture, kill. And then of course there's the cross, and then the skull. And I'm not an expert on all this gang iconography, but I'm assuming that that's probably what that means. So anyway, old Trumpy did an interview with, oh God, that was terrible. Anyway, I'll show that one to you in just a second. Anyway, he was doing an interview with ABC News. And during the interview, the President Donald Trump said that he could tell El Salvador to return Garcia or Abrego Garcia, but, quote, "I'm not the one making this decision. We have lawyers who don't want to do this. And, quote, if I were the president that just wanted to do anything, I could probably keep him right where he is. But he would push El Salvador if he thought Abrego Garcia was a good person." While discussing the Abrego Garcia case, the senior national correspondent Terry Moran said, quote, "You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk. You could pick it up. And with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now." Trump's response? I could, and if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that. Now, the interesting part of it is Trump said, the ABC News was saying, well, he's not. How do you know he's an MS-13 guy? And Trump says, look at his knuckles. Look at the tattoos on his knuckles. And there's a big dust up between them. So go ahead and play cut number 2.
Amazing job. I have closed borders. He said you couldn't do it. You wouldn't be able to do it. It would never happen. Well, it happened, and it happened very quickly. Wait a minute. When we have criminals, murderers, criminals in this country, we have to get them out, and we're doing it.
By law.
And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
But wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattoo.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshop.
Hold on. So what ABC News is referring to is, and if you look, actually, you know what? Let's go back to the slide just again. All right. So where you see the letters MS-13, yes, those were photoshopped on, but the M The marijuana leaf, that stands for an M. And then the smiley, that's an S. And then the cross is a 1. And then the skull, notice the 3 like empty holes on the skull? That stands for 3. So, to argue that, we don't know what what these things mean is ridiculous. We have gang experts across the United States, pretty much, maybe not in Wyoming, but in other places, just about every police department has somebody who's steeped in all this, gang iconography and the symbols. All gangs have symbols. And let me just give you an example. I'm most familiar with motorcycle clubs. If you see it's summer, and so you're going to see a lot of different motorcyclists. Often you'll see a patch with just numbers. In Wyoming, you see one that says 307 all the time. Well, that stands for Wyoming. Or you might see a patch that has the number 13 on it. 13, M is the 13th letter of the alphabet. M for motorcycle. Okay, so every gang has their own iconography, and to suggest that we don't know what that is ridiculous. Go ahead and continue with the soundbite.
Giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
Here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
Okay, you got me red-handed. Let's go somewhere else.
I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine.
No,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but they're there
in
now.
your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
he's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at
Why
that,
don't you
sir.
just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
Ukraine. There it is. It's contested. So we start out the interview by saying, it's not there. It was completely photoshopped. And at the end, it's contested. I'll admit that there's some tattoos there, but I won't admit what they mean. This is why nobody trusts the mainstream media. And frankly, you shouldn't even trust the media in Wyoming. I mean, they're a little bit better, but generally speaking, they're horrible. But I want to go to a larger point here. The Democrats have been pushed into a place where the only thing they have is to defend this criminal gangbanger. I've got the next soundbite. Let's hear. It's cut number 4, but it's Van Jones saying that the Democrats don't have a plan. Now, Van Jones, he's been on CNN, NBC, all of them, even though he's a former communist and probably still is one. But anyway, here he is saying
most people are sheeple. They're going to look around and try to figure out what they're supposed to do. And if everybody's kind of calmly, wringing their hands, and most people won't move. You need 2 things. You need a fire alarm and you need a fire station. A fire alarm is somebody who can raise the concern level in an appropriate way. And we also need a fire station. Who's going to put out this fire? The opposition is important, but what's the proposition? What are Democrats offering besides outrage to Donald Trump and Elon Musk?
There it is. What can they argue except for being outraged at Donald Trump and hating Elon Musk? Other than that, they don't have anything. Now, I think it's important to understand who this Van Jones guy is. We first heard about him when he was appointed as the Green Czar under the Barack Obama administration. And then very quickly, because nobody knew who this guy was, we're like, who the heck is Van Jones? I mean, where did he come from? Well, it was Glenn Beck that started to do some research into him. And we find out that he is a radical communist with some very, very radical ties. And it wasn't that long after that he stepped down as the Green Czar, or he was fired or something. But, it's the Democrats. And if a radical like Van Jones is saying, hey, what's the plan? That the Democrats don't have anything. The only thing they got is Orange Man bad, and that's about
Spooky language. Spooky language.
Spooky language. Well, yesterday, actually, a great conservative passed away. His name was David Horowitz. And I haven't seen much of his work recently, but, in the early 2000s, the guy was everywhere. Interestingly enough, though, he started out as a a communist socialist. There's a piece in Breitbart, and it's just kind of a, in memoriam type piece, but let me just read a little bit of it to you. Quote, author and conservative activist David Horowitz, his most famous book was Radical Son, and he passed away on April 29th. Born in Forest Hills, New York, Horowitz's political life began relatively early due to his parents' membership in the Communist Party USA. His book, Radical Son, Horowitz said his parents, both school teachers, fancied themselves as secret agents dedicated to advancing the cause of socialism under, at whatever cost. From his book, underneath the ordinary surfaces of their lives, my parents and their friends thought of themselves as secret agents. Even if we never encountered a Soviet agent or engaged in a single illegal act, each of us knew that our commitment to socialism implied the obligation to commit treason too. So started out in a radical family, communist members, outward communist members of the Communist Party USA. And then in the 1980s, he announced his vote for Ronald Reagan and continued his support for American conservatism until the eventual founding of his organization, the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Over the decades, and especially after the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, Horowitz positioned himself as a strong advocate against radical Islam and regularly spoke out against anti-Semitism on college campuses. In one particularly harrowing exchange at UC San Diego in 2010 that has since become viral, Horowitz addressed a Muslim student as she expressed support for the extermination of Jews worldwide. Go ahead and play cut number 3.
Yes.
Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you for coming to campus tonight and presenting your point of view. It's always valuable to have two sets of views going on at the same time. Very useful. My name is Jumana Imad Musa Ahmed Al-Bahri, and I'm a student here at UCSD. I was reading your literature. I found that much more interesting than the talk. And I found some interesting things about the MSA, which is an organization that's very active on campus, and it is hosting our annual Hitler Youth Week. You should come out to those events. If you could clarify the connection between the MSA and jihad terrorist networks, because last I checked, we had to do our own fundraising, and we never get help from anyone. So if you could clarify the connection between UCSD's MSA, or if you don't have such information, if you could connect other MSAs on UC's, because the connection wasn't too clear in the pamphlet. Just if you could clarify.
Okay. Will you condemn Hamas here and now?
I'm sorry, what?
Will you condemn Hamas?
Would I condemn Hamas?
As a terrorist genocidal organization?
Are you asking me to put myself on a cross?
So you won't. I actually have had this experience many times. You didn't read the pamphlet because the pamphlet is chapter and verse. The main connection is that the MSA is part of the Muslim Brotherhood Network as revealed in the documents.
I don't think you understood what I meant by that. I meant if I say something, I'm sure that I will be arrested for reasons of Homeland Security. So if you could please just answer my question.
As she
if you
should be,
condemn Hamas, Homeland Security will
If I
arrest you.
support Hamas, because your question forces me to condemn Hamas. If I support Hamas, I look really
If you
bad.
don't condemn Hamas, obviously you support it. Case closed. I've had this experience, I had this experience at UC Santa Barbara where there were 50 members of the Muslim Students Association sitting right in the rows there. And throughout my hour talk, I kept asking them, will you condemn Hezbollah and Hamas? And none of them would. And then when the question period came, the president of the Muslim Students Association was the first person to ask questions. And I said, before you start, will you condemn Hezbollah? And he said, well, that question is too complicated for a yes-no answer. So I said, okay, I'll put it to you this way. I'm a Jew. The head of Hezbollah has said that he hopes that we will gather in Israel so he doesn't have to hunt us down globally. For it or against it?
For it.
Thank you.
Boom. That is
Thank you
David
for coming
Horowitz.
and showing everybody what's here.
Exactly right. Now, he did that repeatedly at colleges across this country. Though he may have started out as a radical communist, or at least his family was, he turned in to be a giant in conservatism, and we're going to miss him. When we come back from the break, the segment, Who Saw This Coming? I've got a couple of stories here that, man, I saw them, and I just had to laugh, and you will too. So we'll talk about them in just a second. Perhaps where our society is going and how stupid many of us are. We'll do that next.
Here at U.S. Coin Capital, we hear from Americans across the United States who have a growing concern about the future purchasing power of U.S. paper money. Many Americans are looking for an alternative for long-term capital. For more than 35 years, the people at U.S. Coin Capital have educated American investors on how to properly accumulate United States gold and silver coins. Call us at 1-800-878-2646 or visit us on the web, uscoincapital.com.
Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics.
Some say standing up for what you believe in is being extreme. Ask any woman in Wyoming. They'll tell you this is called courage. The mainstream media claims that holding the line on important issues is being unreasonable. My mom taught me this is called staying true to our principles. In other places, people argue you always have to compromise to get something done. Here in Wyoming, we know that some things are worth protecting at all costs. Some say it's time we give up on the values that made our state great to accommodate toxic culture. I say it's time to stand tall and protect the values that have served Wyoming well for over 134 years. Join Honor Wyoming as we defend and preserve the Wyoming way of life. Find out how you can make a difference today.
Visit honorwyoming.org. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics, moving through another busy broadcast hour. I'm your host, David Iverson, having more fun than anyone should ever have. Who saw this coming? Now, I know that there's a lot of things that we see come up in the news, and we say, well, I mean, that is so obvious. Who could have possibly ever figured out that that was going to happen? That somehow, maybe, we could have said, maybe you don't want to do that. It might turn out bad. Let me give you an example from the Wall Street Journal. Meta's AI chatbots engaged in explicit sexual role play with minors. Who could have seen this one coming? And I quote, a Wall Street Journal investigation has revealed that Meta's AI chatbots on Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp are empowered to engage in, quote, romantic role play. Garbage in, garbage out. And it's all dependent upon how these things are programmed.
Romantic
Role play with users that can turn sexually explicit, even with accounts belonging to children. In a statement to Breitbart News, the social media giant says that it has taken additional measures. The Wall Street Journal reported that in a rush to popularize AI-powered digital companions across its social media, what the heck is a digital companion? I don't understand. I mean, are you so desperate?
2 plus 2 is 4.
There you go.
Not 5 if you want it to be 5. And this is not to be discriminatory. This is to stand up for language. Words mean things.
Words mean things. What the heck is a digital companion? Now, despite warnings from staffers that this could cross ethical lines, Meta cut deals with celebrities to use their voices for the chatbots and quietly made an exception to its ban on, quote, explicit content to allow for romantic and sexual scenarios. Test conversations conducted by the Wall Street Journal found that both Meta's official AI and user-created chatbots readily engaged in and escalated sexually explicit discussions, even when users identified themselves as underage. If you are a radical leftist and you're programming these things, why wouldn't we think that they were going to be able to engage in some sort of sexual conversation? I mean, honestly.
Well, yesterday, first of all, it's a travesty that they equate romance to sex.
Yes.
That's, words mean things. The whole thing, we talked about yesterday, there ought to be a law. We ought to be able to block that. Okay, you can make the laws. You can try to prohibit this sort of activity. Technology is going to find a way around it faster than you can reconvene.
Right. I mean, politics is always downstream from culture. And I mean, you guys are always playing catch up. And I mean, it's very similar to the piece that we talked about yesterday with the revenge porn. How do you monitor that? We have so many laws, and here's a great example. We have a lot of laws that are that deal with broadcasting. Right? You have to have a broadcasting license. You have FCC rules, but then this thing called podcasts happened, and none of those broadcasting rules apply to podcasts, and they shouldn't, by the way. I'm definitely not in favor of any sort of regulation, though. I mean, I think that we should be able to compete in the marketplace of ideas, and the marketplace will take care of, whatever pornography or illicit content is included in any of those things.
You mean romantic?
Oh yes, romantic, exactly.
Horse crap.
The problem is that whatever we put into these things is whatever is going to be spit out. And human beings are flawed from our very beginning. We're all sinful. The Bible says the human heart is, how does it go? Agent 29 is intensely.
Every imagination of a man's heart is only evil continually.
Yeah, that's one of them. The one I was thinking of is the
human
heart.
Well, that's the right one.
Is something wicked, and who could know it? But anyway,
something wicked this way comes, but that
maybe.
was Ray Bradbury.
My point is that whomever is programming these things, I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out. And when you have people that are radical leftists, which many of the people that work at Meta are, well, who saw that one? Now, in the next article I have for you in the Who Could Have Seen This One Coming, Net Zero Madness, Spain's reliance on solar energy is blamed for massive nationwide power cut. And I quote, Spain's power network has remained silent on the actual cause of Europe's worst power blackout in a generation, but has acknowledged that it is very possible that a problem with the solar power systems may have contributed to this failure. A freak weather incident was blamed on Monday for a massive power cut that affected the entire Iberian Peninsula, depriving Spain and Portugal of all electricity. However, this narrative was quickly questioned by energy industry insiders, and Spain's national energy company now acknowledges that renewable power failure may have been a contributing factor. Countries across Europe have been dismantling their coal-fired power plants and their nuclear power plants in favor of so-called renewable energy. Well, the sun doesn't always shine, and the wind doesn't always blow, which is the main reason why a lot of this renewable energy does work. But if your entire power grid is based on so-called renewable energy, of course you're going to have blackouts.
You obviously never lived in Casper.
Obviously, I never did. In fact, Casper, the wind blows almost continually. Why don't they have, if these windmills are so great, why don't they just put them all in Casper? I mean, it's ugly enough. Why not just, trash up the view shed some more? I mean, I don't know. But really, this march toward renewable energy is a fallacy from the very beginning. It doesn't really have anything to do with saving the environment. It has to do with money. Truth is, one of those windmills will never pay for itself by the time that it wears out. Additionally, it takes a tremendous amount of oil to operate one of those. But I thought they were green. If you believe that, I've got some beachfront property around Guernsey to sell you. Well, yeah, they are white, of course. That's true. If they're white, they have to be clean. It's so stupid. I mean, I don't know why you would cut off your nose to spite your face like a lot of these countries are doing.
Racist windmills.
Racist windmills, exactly right. But again, who could have seen that one coming? And it's absolutely incredible. Well, we've got about 5 minutes left, and there's a piece that I wanted to cover yesterday, and I just didn't get to it. And this one infuriates me to no end because I am an Eagle Scout from when that actually meant something. At the time I became an Eagle Scout, there were Time magazine covers of people like Steven Spielberg and George Bush. Even though I don't really care for him that much. He was an Eagle Scout. There's a number of very, very famous people that were, but that was when that actually meant something. Now, Boy Scouts has become Scouting America, and it is all about inclusivity and the LGBTQZXPWDS agenda.
I wonder if you can get a romance badge.
I'm sure that they probably have one.
Checking.
Yeah, just infuriating. Here's what the piece from PragerU has to say. The Boy Scouts of America has officially changed its name to Scouting America. Virtually all mentions of the word boy have been scrubbed from the updated Scouting America website, even from the timeline detailing the organization's 1910 founding and historical benchmarks. Lord Baden-Powell, the original founder of the scouting movement in the early 1900s, modeled his scouts after the military. Today, Scouting America encourages boys to, quote, do fun things together and in a welcoming and safe environment where scouts can freely express themselves. It's not about learning values like being trustworthy, loyal, helpful, or friendly, or courteous, or kind. Now, it's about doing things where you can express yourself without the encumbrances of values.
You got to do fun things.
Yes, we have to do fun things. We can't learn things that are productive and that will teach you how to be a man. We can't. And if you want to know why we have so many problems in marriages and we have so many households that are, single parent households, I'm not saying all of them. I mean, things happen, but if you want to know why we have such an increase in failed divorces, it's because we are not teaching men how to be men. One of the big topics at the Charlie Kirk event was him discussing why it's important for men to lead, why it's important for men to learn how to be upstanding, productive members of society.
I used to teach a junior high school Sunday school class. And one of the first things I did was teach the boys that when a gal comes in, you stand up, and the class was full. So it'd be, you might offer her your seat and then you go stand beside, and also how to give a handshake, look somebody in the eye, give a firm handshake. That 30 years later, they've been calling me saying, thank you so much for doing
I'm sure. Absolutely. And it's, there are of the things that I'm proud of, and certainly this program is one of them. One of my most proudest moments, and I couldn't have done it without my dear mother, but she pushed me into finishing the whole thing, is being an Eagle Scout. Well, now I have to tell you, my friends, I'm kind of ashamed sometimes. I'm not ashamed of the hard work that I put in. I'm not ashamed of becoming an Eagle Scout. I'm ashamed of what that program has turned into, because now we're not teaching men how to be men. We're teaching men that somehow you can become a woman. And it is absolutely outrageous. Actually, yesterday when I was going to bring up this topic, I had a picture of them in a parade, and it wasn't American flags. It was a row of pride flags. Completely disgraceful. And if you want to know, if you want a symptom of why some of the things are happening in our world, that's one of them, that we don't have any principles, that we don't teach people how to be good.
Yeah, I wonder what Norman Rockwell would think.
Oh, man. Man, can you imagine the paintings that he would make now? It'd be shocking. Well, we burned through another busy broadcast hour on the program. Make sure that you don't miss a minute of Cowboy State Politics. Like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, the interview with Bob Ferguson is coming up on the podcast in about an hour, so you don't want to miss that one. Also, If you miss any of the podcasts or any of the broadcasts, you can go to cowboystatepolitics.com, go to the live replay section, and find them. But for now, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics. See you tomorrow.